Alrighty, guys. Good morning to you all here. Happy Saturday, June 28th, 2025, the last Saturday of the month here before we get ready to go into the 4th of July holiday. Crazy that we're already almost into the month of July. I keep saying that every day, but it just blows my mind how fast this year is going by here. We've got a lot of things to talk about today, guys, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the tropics here. We went from a 10% chance yesterday morning of a tropical system developing down here in the southern portions of the Gulf and up to a 50% chance overnight through this morning here. So we are now looking at a 50-50 shot at seeing our second named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season developing down here in the southern Gulf. The good news is this is going to be more than likely moving into Mexico. This shouldn't bring any impacts to the United States. There could be a shot that we see some heavy rain be moving into southern portions of Texas, but as of right now, this would be moving into southern Mexico. We've got about a 48-hour window here for this thing to develop here. You can see yesterday this blob of convection was sitting well out here over in the central portions of the American gyro here, or off the eastern coast of the Yucatan. Ended up moving overland through the overnight hours last night and moved this morning off land back into the water here, where we do have a pretty decent water temperatures here to support the Gulf here to support the system to potentially get going. So we're going to be watching this today. I will have live stream coverage for our severe weather event later on this afternoon, as well as talking about this today. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about this. This is going to go a little bit stir crazy, but that's not the big issue that we've got to worry about. We are actually going to have another shot at seeing potentially another tropical system developing off the coast of Florida as we go towards the end of next week. This is the more concerning one that I'm watching. We've got, we'll talk more about this in the stream later on today as well, but a coastal low is going to sit off the coast later on at the end of midweek here going into the 4th of July holiday season next week. When that low is potentially going to spin up and allow for a tropical depression or storm to potentially develop. So I would not be shocked to see the National Hurricane Center issue a development region somewhere in this area going into the next couple of days here, as we continue to see the European ensembles and both the GFS ensembles both show the potential for a off the coast or a coastal low tropical depression to develop, which could even be our B or our C name storm if this one does not come to fruition here. So we are starting to get the tropics going. I told you guys it was a matter of time before that happened. I do want to mention this now. Be mindful who you guys watch on social media in terms of these forecasts, because there's going to be a lot of people now that start to see this happening and say, oh, a major hurricane's coming to Florida, or there's a major hurricane coming to the Gulf, and that's not the case. We don't even have a named storm yet or anything close to that right now. So we are watching the tropics. The tropics are going to start getting active in the next week or two here. We've got those two different areas that we're going to be watching for. We've also got the Pacific Ocean down here to watch as well, going through the next couple of days, as we are expecting our 5th to 6th named storm of the year down here off the coast of Mexico into the Pacific Ocean. So a lot of things tropic-wise to watch. We'll keep you guys updated on both of these regions here, especially as we go into early next week. I will let you guys know as well if something does happen next week. I will not be here to cover. You guys will have to watch Connor's Climate Corner on TikTok or YouTube. We will be on vacation leaving next Wednesday, gone through that following Monday the 7th. So you guys will not have me for that event, but we'll have me all the way up to Wednesday. So the other thing that we're going to be watching, we have a pretty significant tornado risk today in and around the Minneapolis area today. We've got a slight risk and a marginal risk up here into the high plains in the upper Midwest, and then another marginal and slight risk back up here in the Northeast. We're going to talk about that here in just a second once we break down the SPC forecast here in a moment. Here, it's a cluster of thunderstorms moving through northeast portions of Oklahoma into Missouri this afternoon and through this evening. Will be eventually weakening as it progresses eastward into the lower Ohio Valley, but we could still see some showers and thunderstorms through the Ohio Valley and the southeast later on this afternoon. So we'll go ahead and hop over to the Storm Prediction Center here. Actually, we'll go ahead and talk about that area to watch real quick, and then I'll go to SPC. This is that 50-50 shot at seeing a tropical cyclone develop in the next 2 days here. 48-hour window for this thing to get going. If this does not get going, this will not make that named storm. So we have to have this become a tropical storm at 40 miles per hour to become our next named storm. So Barry would be the next name to watch on the list here. We already had Andrea up here in the Atlantic Ocean earlier last week. This would be our next same named storm to watch, which would be Barry. So we'll be keeping you guys updated with that there. We'll go ahead and hop over SPC here, talk about briefly what we're going to be seeing with the Storm Prediction Center for today. And I mentioned there is a marginal and a slight risk. I could see an upgrade to an enhanced risk today if need be in and around this area here for damaging winds or hail. But right now, this is going to be at a slight risk zone level, so level 2 risk out of 5. Minneapolis all the way down to Valentine, Nebraska, up into South Dakota, North Dakota. Again, these are the same areas that have been getting severe weather back to back to back to back. We've also got an area of severe weather up here in the Northeast that we've got to watch from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, all the way up into Albany, New York here, getting up into Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. So the big threats on the Northeast are going to be a low in tornado risk and a wind threat. I will start with that tornado risk today. We do have a 2% chance of seeing a tornado up here into eastern portions and southeastern portions of New York, getting up in Albany, getting up into portions of the Northeast here. Our bigger area for tornado genesis today is going to be up here into Minnesota. So we are going to have to watch Minneapolis, Minnesota once again. You guys are the bullseye. 5% tornado risk here getting into western and central Wisconsin, eastern South Dakota, northern portions of Iowa, central portions of Minnesota here. That tornado risk is definitely going to be applied here for today. We're going to have to watch for any clusters or discrete cells that do fire off later on tonight. Wind threat is at 15 and 5% for winds up to 70 miles per hour. And then the hail threat is hatched as well here, western and central Minnesota and eastern South Dakota for hail up to 2+ inches in diameter. Outside of that, everybody has a chance of seeing hail up to 1 to 2 inches in diameter for today. We'll talk about that timeline in just a minute and what that's going to look like here in a second. I do want to talk about tomorrow. We do have a small marginal risk for severe weather on the East Coast again. Roanoke all the way up to Washington, D.C. and Baltimore with a more conditional marginal risk up here for storms up in the high plains, upper plains, Midwest here, and central plains with a slight risk that attaches from UP, Michigan back down through Wisconsin, southeastern portions of Minnesota and getting into Iowa here where we do have a small tornado risk here, less than 2%. It's not existing right now, but there is a non-zero but less than 2% tornado risk for both regions here, so I wouldn't be shocked to see a 2% get applied at some point here in the future. Tomorrow's going to be more of a wind and a hail threat here. Wind threat at 15 and 5 for winds up to 70, and then the hail threat at 5% for hail up to 1 to 2 inches in diameter. Then we get to the day 3 forecast, and this is where severe weather really starts to diminish as we start to see our big ridge develop here. I don't expect a lot of severe weather early into next week. We do have a marginal risk on Monday that we do have to watch up here in the lower Ohio Valley back into eastern Missouri. Another marginal risk back up here as well from North Carolina into Pennsylvania, so we'll keep you guys updated on that as that continues to get closer. I do want to go ahead and break down this forecast on what we're going to be seeing for today here, and a lot of thunderstorms will be ongoing, but the big thing is these aren't going to initiate until about 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon here, so we will be live to cover this later on this afternoon. Clusters of storms we've been through about midday, and then we're going to see these supercells erupt on the Minnesota, Nebraska / Iowa, but the Minnesota, Nebraska, South Dakota line, and these could be tornadic, very significantly tornadic to start with, and then eventually these are going to kind of grow upscale into a cluster of storms, maybe even a line of storms where we could see significant damaging winds moving into Minneapolis, Minnesota, potentially producing. I wouldn't be surprised to see a hatched wind threat get upgraded with this potentially in the future, but all modes of severe weather will be possible through the overnight hours tonight as we watch this system progress into Wisconsin after midnight tonight. So Minneapolis, your time frame would be about 5 p.m. to about midnight, kind of as my thinking on this, and then we'll move those through, and then by early morning hours, we'll have another round of storms moving off the plains through the overnight hours coming into southern Minnesota and Iowa through tomorrow morning. Clusters of storms moving through back down here into Wisconsin and getting into Michigan, and they'll be watching for showers and storms and maybe some more organized severe weather back into Iowa, Nebraska, and the plains tomorrow. So just a big day today for severe weather in terms of the Midwest. We'll have to keep you guys updated on that. Like I said, we'll have a stream later on this afternoon. I will wander over here and talk about what we're going to see in the Northeast for today as well. Showers and storms will be firing off here in just a couple of hours. Spotty supercells potentially for an isolated tornado risk, damaging wind threat, and hail threat. That'll be done and out of here by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock tonight. So a very short window today, about 6 to 7 hours today, where we could see all modes of severe weather possible from southeastern portions of New York here back into Pennsylvania and even into the eastern Ohio River Valley there. So something to be mindful of today. All modes of severe weather will be possible. One more thing I do want to mention, we hop back over here to the Midwest real quick, kind of show you guys these tornado parameters just to kind of give you guys an idea of the spin. We had multiple tornado warnings last night in and around the North Dakota, South Dakota area. And if you look at these tornado parameters today, guys, I would not be shocked to see SPC upgrade to a 10% hatch tornado risk if this does continue to trend through the morning and midday here. So this is concerning. These are high tornado parameters, and we need to watch this very closely going through the afternoon and evening hours later on this afternoon here. So just something to kind of make mindful of here. I will take a sounding here, and you do get a pretty decent tornado sounding here. Lots of cape, lots of instability, lots of moisture, lots of just everything here to allow for a pretty decent shot at seeing a couple tornadoes. So could we see an upgrade to a 10% hatch tornado risk? I think it's on the table. We'll see what SPC does here in the future, but this is definitely something we've got to watch here over the next couple of hours before this event kicks off. So we'll keep you guys updated on that, and going through tomorrow, don't see too much of a tornado risk there. We'll keep you guys updated on that as always. Now let's talk about our global pattern here and what we're going to be seeing over the next couple of days. As I mentioned, zonal flow allowing for severe weather to continue to happen. You can see a little bit of a bulge in our jet stream today that's going to allow for that severe weather across Minnesota today. Other than that, high pressure building back down into the lower 48 here into the southeast and the central plains here. What we're going to continue to watch through much of the weekend here is going to be that zonal flow. I want you guys to pay attention as we go into next week here, because what's going to happen is we're going to have a little dip in our trough here. Could give us some severe weather, like I said, here on Monday. Could bring some more severe weather back up here in the plains on Monday here. But then we start to watch down here. I want you guys to pay attention to the Gulf down here as we continue to see a low pressure system off the eastern side of Florida that's going to try and develop on Tuesday. And if that does get going, that'll shift westward here. A little bit of a weird storm movement Going into late next week, we're going to have to watch for a low pressure system that could develop down here in the Gulf, potentially giving us our third name storm of the year or our second name storm of the year, depending on what happens with the system over in the southern Gulf right now. But we could be looking at a very close to home storm development going into late next week, tropical wise. So something to kind of be mindful of. It's not quite set in stone yet, but some models have it, some don't. Some of the ensembles definitely are showing it, especially the European ensemble. So something to make note of there. But going through much of next week into the 4th of July holiday season, we'll have some dips in our jet stream here to allow for some thunderstorms, some low and severe weather. I just don't see anything super organized, at least through the 4th of July as of right now. So there will be still some storms, some severe weather out there. Other than that, though, it shouldn't be anything too significant to allow for everybody to see, widespread severe weather or any of that. And then as we go into the second week and third week of July, things become a little bit more uncertain, but it does look to be that we are going to see the potential here, potentially, like I said, going into that second week for some type of tropical system down in the Gulf, as well as more severe weather returning back to the high plains again. Now, there is one thing I do want to talk about, and that's going to be the flooding threat, guys. We are going to have flooding. We are going to see days and days of rainfall back down here into the Florida area and back down in the panhandle of the southeast as well. We could see some pretty significant rainfall totals add up over the next couple of days here. We'll get these played out through the next 10 days, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Significant rainfall totals back down into western Florida. We could see some 5, maybe 5 to 8 inches of rainfall back down here into like southern panhandle of Florida, getting towards like Tallahassee, getting down towards Tampa area here. Some significant rainfall totals to watch for, even some spotty rainfall totals up into Arkansas, Missouri through the later half of next week here. But we are going to mostly be watching down here into Florida, where we could see 5 to 8, maybe 12 inches of rainfall fall through the next 5 to 7 days. So do be mindful of those roadways, those flash flood prone areas. There's something to be mindful of as you go through the next couple of days if you're down in those areas. But other than that, mostly everybody will be seeing scattered convection throughout the next week here. I don't think we're going to see any 4th of July washouts. Maybe down in Florida potentially. We'll kind of keep you guys updated on that as we get through the middle of next week. But other than that, guys, be safe, be weather aware. We'll have weather coverage later on for you guys this afternoon and tonight. Other than that, be safe, have a wonderful Saturday, and we'll see you guys in the next one.